All right, welcome to our City Council meeting for tonight, January 15th, 2020. We will begin with an invocation by Pastor Pete from Cedar City Foursquare Church, and then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilwoman Hartley.
Good evening, everyone. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you with hearts that are humble, just even in that we get to live in this amazing place. Lord, tonight there's all kinds of stuff on the agenda, and I just pray, Father, for a cooperative spirit, Lord, for wisdom, Lord, and that you would be glorified in everything that we talk about, everything that's said, and everything that's done. Lord, I pray for each of the city council members and the employees of the city, Lord, that your blessings would be on them. Thank you for their service. Thank you for their willingness to take these roles. And Lord, sometimes those roles come with heat. Sometimes they come with great joy. But either way, Lord, I pray that your will would be done as we converse and as we discuss the things that are important to all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're leaving that on, aren't we? Somebody said we might pull that off. Okay. We will now move on to our agenda order approval. Are there any items the council would like changed from the published agenda? Not, could we get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move to council business.
Mayor, I would like to find out, and I'm sorry to ask Chief Phillips, but I just noticed on 200 South, and maybe other places, but I was there for some business the other day, and none of the fire hydrants there have red paint markings for parking, no parking on them. Seems like we could get maybe someone to do a little paint there, and there's also one that's very high with weeds around it. Those are all along 200 South that I noticed. So if you'd look into that, I'd appreciate it.
What part of 200 South?
From Main to the Senior Citizen Center,
Thanks.
east. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other council comments? Then we will move on to our staff comments, and we'll start with our employee of the month.
Wade Orm, Parks Division Head. I'm filling in for Ken Nielsen, the Leisure Services Director. This month, I'm sorry, this was all kind of last minute. I don't have any paper, so I'm going to have to wing this. The Employee of the Month is Ed Miller from the Parks Department. So Ed has been with the city for 2 years now, and he is phenomenal. He is someone that can fill in for us in anything. We have a few injuries right now, and that has left us a little short-staffed. Ed has always been able to step in and pick up the slack, which has been a great asset this time of year, especially with the Christmas holidays. He was one of those guys during the horrendous windstorm that ended up taking down the present. He was out there fighting the elements, getting that in, helping putting it back up. Ed is a great employee that I am very grateful to have on my staff. So,
And we appreciate you rescuing the present.
I think it's terrific that someone like that can dress as nice as you are, work for the Parks Department. That's fantastic.
And still get dirty.
That was no comment on you, Wade. That was no comment on you, Wade.
If you want to shake the council.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You want to talk about your other part?
Wade Orms Parks Division. I have one other thing I'd like to bring in front of the council, as well as the cemetery is ready to start people to come in to purchase niches in our columbarium. So our columbarium is up and ready. We have fees and maps and everything ready. So just for your information, the columbarium is open for business, I guess. So
Great.
Thank you.
Come and see.
Thank you.
Open for business.
Yeah.
Your turn.
So I have one, Pastor Pete mentioned there was times when he had good news, and so this is one of those. Kenny Nelson isn't here, so I can bring him up. Has been working with Gene Lepore for a little bit of time now about issues regarding Cross Hollow Arena and some improvements out there. And Jean was gracious enough this afternoon. She dropped off a check for $100,000 to go towards improvements at Cross Hollow.
Oh my goodness.
So big
Wow.
thanks to both of those folks.
That's good news. That's great.
And
Wow.
she did not want to come before the council.
Neither one of them want publicity,
It kind of goes with the arena, I
We
think.
kind of,
So,
and we haven't told Larry yet. So
but that's why we're telling you instead of having them actually formally here was
Thank you.
that's
they
great.
did not want that.
That's
Wow.
fabulous.
All right. Are there any other staff comments?
That's fantastic.
Okay, then we will move on to our business agenda with the public comment portion.
Hello, sir.
Been a while, Dallin. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Dallin Staley with the ice rink. So I thought I'd give just a quick report, and then I'll report on what I handed out there. So I thought I'd just kind of tell you about how things are going this year so far. So just a quick report on just the numbers, basically. So it's been another great start to the year. Public skating, so far we've done 9,304 public skaters through the rink. That was essentially the month of December. That's pretty well on par for what we've been the last 2 years. We've sold 68 season passes, which is a 58% increase, or a 50% increase from last year. We have 105 learn to skate participants, which is 170% increase from last year. Our youth hockey registrations are up 40%. Our adult hockey registrations are up 15%, and our private rentals are up 15%. So we're really happy. It's great to see what's going on. Just came from getting hockey practice started. And I guess you guys can all read, so I'll just summarize it to say that we're not going to be able to move forward with our plans for the future. Things just, I guess we've hit a roadblock. We had our discussions on the contract. It's not something that we feel comfortable with. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. We've taken several weeks to talk with a lot of different people, get a lot of input from smart people that know business and have kind of followed the issue. And nobody has advised us to move forward. Nobody's even hesitated to advise us that it's not a smart move. And so I guess with that, we're going to withdraw our efforts for that. It's not in bad faith. It's not in there's no hard feelings, I guess I'll say. It's just it's just an impasse that we've come to, and we've gone round and round enough that it's time for us to call it quits. That being said, we've learned some stuff. I hope the city's learned some stuff. And maybe the next time someone comes forward wanting to partner with the city in providing something, hopefully we've learned something that'll help something else good come along. So I also want to just say that in no way is our faith in the viability or the fact that would have been something great. In no way is that wavering. We still believe in it 100%. 100%, I believe that an ice rink would be successful in Cedar City, that it would benefit the community, and that it would be a great thing. And we're gonna give it our all with what we've got. We're gonna see it out to the bitter end, I guess. So until you ask us to leave, we'll continue to do the best we can to provide what we can provide with the current facilities. And we'll support any other community effort, I guess, that goes in the direction that we hoped to get to. So thanks for all the hours and discussions, and thank you.
Don't walk away. Don't walk away yet. Needless to say, this is very disappointing. We all spent hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to make this thing work. So I need to wrap my head around, first of all, this came as a complete surprise to me. Did other members of the council or people know about this?
No.
Did any members of the staff know about this? So why can't we sit down and talk about this? Or is it the lease, or is it fundraising? What is the issue that is the final nail in the coffin for your board?
The nail in the coffin is the lease. We reached out to a few following that, and we're it was indicated that there wasn't really an interest in talking further. Besides that, I guess, yeah, I mean, you guys know it's been a frustrating and challenging process, which we were happy to participate in and be moving in the right direction. But I mean, there was some very concerning things in the lease, and I guess the approach that we weren't partners, we were tenants that were being paid to be there. It's a very challenging thing for us to try to move forward with anyway, and I'm just not confident that we're going to get there the way that things were going. So.
But most of that is terminology. I mean, a lot of that when you say that partnership and we're using the land, and I mean, you're using the land and we're paying you. I mean, a lot of that is terminology. I mean, if we really believe that it's in the best interests of the youth and the children of this community to have winter sports, it seems to me we need to find a way to work through that. And with all due respect, these 5 council people here govern the city.
I understand.
We have expert staff, and believe me, they know their stuff. But we govern the city. And I wish that you would have come and spoke to some of us about this before this final decision was made. Because I'm very disappointed.
I am too.
I share that disappointment. You know that I've been involved in this from the very beginning, and a $2.85 million commitment seemed to send the message that we were a true partner. And I don't see how you can look beyond that, but that's your choice. And I don't know how are fundraising opportunities going? Or was it even going to go on that basis?
We don't know. We those efforts have kind of been suspended. So
okay.
Yeah.
We would
I-
have loved
I-
to, those of us who put our heart and soul in this would have loved to have heard from you before you did this. But
Just so you know, no one's got more heart and soul in it than me. So
I know that.
understand. We
I know
understand.
that. And I'm fearful that when we close this book and close this chapter, it may never be reopened again. And we will have a long time before we can come up with the funding, whoever that is, to support this kind of an endeavor. And I think it would help us stand apart as a community for years to come.
I think so too.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right. Are there other public comments?
Dallin asked me not to make any comments, but I'm going to go against
Will you
him.
just state your name for the
Dave
record?
Staley.
Thanks.
And I'm going to be really short too on this. The only, again, we don't have any hard feelings toward anyone. I know there were some efforts made by some to talk to some of the council, I believe anyway, my understanding was, and there was an interest expressed that they were not interested in discussing it further. And I don't remember who said that, but anyway. So the only other thing I want to say is the day that the agreement was voted on, I believe we made it clear that under the terms that were on the agreement that we discussed fairly much at length, that we would not be able to move forward if that was passed under those terms. And one of the major problems, Dallin's probably gone home, so maybe he won't know what I'm saying. One of the major problems was being able to secure funding, or feel confident in securing funding. The first shaky ground that started was when, and again, we were asking for something, so please understand that we understand that. We were not expecting just to have this fly through under the conditions that we had requested in the beginning. But as I recall, the staff really, Jason and Paul, I believe, really discouraged the council from splitting that 2.85 million into two parts, because of the problems that would create in the accounting world for the city down the road. I do remember that very specifically, that they said the money was available and that they very much were opposed to seeing that split. That became an issue for some of the entities that we were trying to work with to secure funding, because the first portion that was committed as a cash donation, basically, or through the means of the agreement, was fine, but the second part could be withdrawn at any time, depending on who was on the city council, which put the rest of that, and I don't remember the exact number of that, but it definitely put the rest of that on shaky ground, which just put it in a kind of a precarious situation to be able to have people who were interested in donating funds toward this. It almost set sort of an attitudinal problem in the first place, and some withdrew their interest in making any donations, just looking at that and some of the other provisions of the agreement. It, to me, as a businessman, was unlike any other agreement I've ever considered entering into. It seemed quite lopsided, honestly, and I'm not condemning anyone for that. It was just some of the provisions there. I don't think if I had been going to seek counsel from even, say, the Small Business Development Center, I don't think that would have been looked at as a real solid agreement with all of the things we had to do in order to get the whole project done. So that's pretty much all I want to say. It was unfortunate because we certainly were ready. I also do believe, and this gives me comfort all the time, a lot of times when you have to fight so hard through something to get somewhere, and the obstacles seem to come up constantly in front of you, which seem to happen kind of over and over again, even though we seem to be able to work through a lot of that. I often think of that as the good Lord above kind of steering us in a direction that we should go. And so I'm good to accept those kind of things when that type of thing comes about. It didn't feel right to me as a member of the board. I didn't have to lobby very hard to say, I don't think it's a good agreement to enter into right now. So in the future, if something can come back in some way that something can be done, we are kind of heartbroken that it can't move forward at that. We'd really like to stay there and continue to operate. Hopefully that can happen for a few years out as we look forward. So that's kind of all I wanted. And I don't take any of what I've said in any kind of a rude fashion at all. It's just really looking at it objectively and with good common sense. It just didn't feel right. So I think you guys all know what the issues are that we talked about. And again, the first one that kind of even put it in a kind of a questionable light that we went ahead and accepted was the financial contribution and the way that it was going to be done in that split fashion, which kind of went counter to what the staff suggested. And I think that was kind of a big thing. We still were going to try to work through it, but then with some of the other issues that were in the agreement, it just kind of took that over the line. So if you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Have you heard anything from the county?
Dallin, it kind of cooled the jets on a lot of things. And so I think that he didn't continue to pursue that at that point. I think that there was going to be room for a fairly sizable donation from the county had everything else kind of been able to fall into place. So someday this needs to happen. It needs to happen. It just needs to happen in some other way. So I'm sorry to see it not to. So anyway.
Well, pardon me for tripping over history here,
Okay.
but we've got to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
We make mistakes as a community, and sometimes it's just human because that's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
But we made a mistake 20 years ago, and we can never go back and fix those kind of problems. And I fear we're closing a chapter on opportunity once again that we're going to have a hard time ever changing again.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, we appreciate all the effort and time that was put in by everyone. It's a lot of heart and soul. Nobody knows what Dallin's gone through with all of this either. He certainly has sacrificed a lot of health and a lot of time and effort. We've all sacrificed a lot to bring it to this point. So, a lot of times that's just, again, a little protection from deity sometimes, I think, when sometimes things happen and perhaps another direction will come about in the future, that we do want to stay there and keep going until we're asked to move. And then perhaps during that time, something else can happen in another way. So anyway, thank you. Thank you all for all your efforts and time.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our public agenda with the consent agenda first. Item number 1, approval of minutes dated December 4th, work, and December 11th, 2019. Ratify bills dated December 13th, 19th, and 20th, 2019, and approve bills for January 10th, 2020. Approve vicinity plan for Cedar Edge Phase 3.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move to the action agenda. Item number 4, consider the bid to purchase 0.3 acres of city property located on the corner of Coal Creek Road and 800 West. Do you want to talk to that?
So the question came up last week in the work meeting where that 7.14 acres came from. In researching that, there are 3 parcels of city-owned property that all have the same parcel number. So when you add those 3 parcels together, that's where that number came from. But the appraisal, the RFP, and the bid all reference the 0.38 acre parcel. And our city surveyor went out and checked that to make sure the legal's square and that it fits that city-owned property as well.
Thank you.
Move to accept the bid.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 5, consider an ordinance amending the zone from annex transition to R2-2 and INM1 on property located at 1300 West, 3500 North.
Dallas Buckner Go Civil. So this is the annex transition piece that's out on the termination of Bulldog, going from annex transition to R22 and INM1.
Dallas, is there any plans in the immediate future to develop this once the zone change is approved, if it is approved? And my reason for that question, if it's going to be developed, I do not want to hear from people, oh, it smells out here. I can smell the cows. I can smell the horses.
Yep.
Because they're there a long time before the houses.
Yep. And that was a big concern during planning commission. As far as the people that own this parcel, they've owned it for, I think, 15, 16 years. In my conversations with them, they said, well, I think we can add value by getting a zone so that something can actually be done. But whether they plan to move forward or list it, I don't know. I mean, we talked a little bit about what could be done on the INM piece. But to say I'm going to come in with a vicinity plan in the next couple weeks.
No, I understand. But I just want to make sure that whoever develops this, they got to go in knowing that. And I don't want to have people coming back into this council 3 years from now complain. Well, I won't even be here, so it doesn't matter. Who knows? But can you verify for me, is that triangle piece right down in the bottom, is that the overlay?
Yeah, so the approach zone line is this one, and so everything southeast. So this triangle is the piece that had that density requirement.
That would be the I.
Yep.
Okay.
Perhaps we could require, similar to lead paint disclosures, the cow manure smell disclosures in real estate papers for those next to ag. Would that work, Scott?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I'm sorry for all you people coming after that last thing.
Other comments, questions from the council?
Move to approve the ordinance amending that zone.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Consider an ordinance annexing 40.74 acres of property located in the vicinity of 1850 North, 3500 West.
Dallas Buckner Go Civil. So this is a 40-acre annexation into the city. I think as Tyler kind of gave the forward on it last time, it had already been approved. This is the last step before it goes off to the state for recording.
Move to approve.
Second.
We'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Item number 7, consider final plat approval for the Cliffs at Sunrise subdivision.
So just a quick update on my side. I received the signed easements today. We went back and forth on some of the language yesterday, so that's all in place.
Are those easements the trail easements that you're referring to?
Yep. Trail easements, and then it also contains storm drain, it's a public utility easement as
Okay.
well.
Okay, let's review the plans for the trail. Okay. Because we got some people here that may want to address it as well. Okay. We have some concerns over the size, that we're not using a 4-foot sidewalk and calling it a trail.
No, it's all 10 feet.
You know what I'm saying? And also in the trails ordinances, prefer to have those not be streets not used, and those types of things, that it's actually a dedicated trail. So the Trails Committee has some issues with, you know, where we're coming across the street from the hills where we've laid the new trail, and getting over to the sidewalk, which is only 4 feet in front of where you put the retention block up. And I know that's not finished yet. So you could add something to that. We hope there's room for some landscape possibly as well. But on down there and around the bend, you're going to be on sidewalk basically, right?
Right. From where you come across the road, which is right about here, you'll be on sidewalk down the road and up Portal Hill and down here till you get to this open
Get to
space.
the green space, but that's all
It's all
going
10
to be
feet.
10 feet.
Yeah, the part of the construction drawings is that along Cove Drive, it'll be widened to 10 feet. It's a 5-foot sidewalk right now, and it'll be widened to 10 feet.
Yeah, this is a big connector trail.
And there still is
And
some room there. The right now there's about 11 feet between the sidewalk and that wall. So there'll be 5 feet. So there'll be about 6 feet of landscape in there.
That'll be great because there's been some concerns that this gets overlooked, sometimes in the development process. And the Trails Committee works very hard to try and get all these things connected around our city so that when people come and want to ride the trails or walk the trails or whatever, they have the connectivity around the city without all this. So we're glad that you're there and that property is being developed. And I think that should take care of it. Ben or anybody that's here, did you want to?
May I ask one question, Ron?
Yeah,
Can I ask a question? Hey, if in the future we want to put a sign over there that points the way for the trails, would you guys be okay with
Wouldn't
that?
be a problem.
Thanks.
Right. Yeah, I would think you'd want to probably have a sign, maybe one up here and one down here and one over there, just to
Guide
so
them.
people know. But
To guide
it will be
them.
10 feet of sidewalk. It'll be obvious where the trail is because it won't be the normal 4-foot sidewalk.
If any of you want to comment, go ahead. These guys are the experts.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Rolante. I've been on your Trails Committee or the city's Trails Committee for over 10 years. And just these kinds of things, I think there's been a couple others that we've run into just in the last little while where the standards that the Trails Committee has kind of set are being, changed. And I think, a trails system is incredibly important to this community, as it is with most places that have a trails committee and have those trails that set standards. And so when people are on a trail, it's like any other community asset. A lot of the things we're doing is for safety, to make sure that there's not bicycles. Like, are we going to have bicycles on this sidewalk? Right now you're not allowed to have a bicycle on a sidewalk, but now we're encouraging a sidewalk to be part of our trail. So that's something we just need to bring to your attention. And I think in general, having something that looks similar throughout the city is important, that people recognize it. It's signed. It's like any other transportation asset. And I think as we grow, I guess we would encourage that these types of changes are kept to a minimum. If not, I think it'll really degrade the quality of the experience of the community members that are using it. So just putting that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Davidson, Chair of the Trails Committee. Just clarification. Green button. Okay. You'd be sidewalk down to here,
Just down to that end of that lot right there.
and there's a sidewalk going
Right.
down between. I guess this will some development here, and then this is another one.
There'll
So
be
there's-
houses in those, but there is a 10-foot sidewalk
It'll go down
all the
and
way to there. And then it goes off.
Then it'll go with the trail on.
Right.
down. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
We specifically widened the road so that from here to here and here to here, it is basically 6-7 feet wider than the normal road in order to make that so it's all within the right of way.
Okay.
So this first part where the sidewalk's gonna be added, that is just gonna be, part of it's gonna be on the property, but it's within the public utility easement. But the rest of it, across here and down here, is actually all in the right of way. The whole 10-foot sidewalk will be in the right of way. So the
So when you say sidewalk, I'm assuming we're talking concrete,
yes,
correct? So if I'm using the sidewalk or using the trail, how do I distinguish which is which?
probably by the width. That's gonna be the main.
But won't they
difference.
all be poured together?
Well,
I mean,
but
is it
the
going to have a big
regular-
yellow stripe down it or what?
The regular sidewalks are only 4 feet wide.
Right.
And this one will be 10 feet wide. So that'll be the main difference.
I want to distinguish between the sidewalk and the trail.
That's what we were talking about. Maybe some little marker signs. It wouldn't have to be it could be similar to what we have on our trails right now. Just with a little arrow that directs you around the corner to the other paved asphalt.
Does that meet
trail.
the standards of the certain trails aesthetics?
The technical standard on the trail is asphalt.
Asphalt. But
My question is, are we going to get so hung up on the difference between concrete and asphalt that we're going to have the developer say, never mind?
I don't know. I can't speak for the developer.
No, I think we just are going with what we discussed, and that's just going to a 10-foot sidewalk instead of 4-foot. I guess if you wanted it to be asphalt.
I don't know. I'm asking our people that do this all the time for the city's master plan.
Well, I think the sidewalk is okay. We've got to make sure that we identify it as part of the trail system.
Okay.
If we can stripe it, like we do the rest of the asphalt trail, if we stripe the sidewalk portion of it, that would help definitely identify that it is still part of the trail system.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a problem if we stripe it? No?
Don't think there'd be any.
that one, yeah,
It's going to be a public
that'd be a good solution.
road, so really it's whatever you guys want.
Now, also, Ron, was that when you get down into that green belt, into those canyons? I know the one trail was going to head south and get over to Cross Hollow Road. Was there another fork going the other way
Well,
behind those other
I
properties?
think the master plan actually showed it coming up this way, and then it showed one coming around to the school or something.
Yeah,
and
or off from
My understanding that this was kind of to replace going around the bottom here, but originally we'd talked about bringing the trail around here to the school per the master plan. But I think it was discussed that they wanted it to go straight through instead. So that's kind of why it changed to that. And then the one coming up from Cross Hollow came up and went on up the back of Mesa Hills.
Right.
So that was my understanding anyway.
Okay. Are there other comments, questions related to the plat approval?
No.
Can we
Move for
get a
final plat
motion?
approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, item number 8, consider an ordinance amending the zone from R-3-M to SHD on property located at 350 South, 300 West.
Yeah, I'm Dave Minear. I'm the owner of the property seeking the change to SHD.
Council have
I've got one question. I had somebody reach out and say that the property on 318 South is not yet owned by you, and they were concerned about procedure if this is a zone change that can occur where that sale is pending. And so for one, I want to check, are they correct in that you are not yet the owner? And number two, is that proper procedure or acceptable?
So no, I'm not. I will be on February 5th. And yeah, so he did sign the same thing. So he signed a form for that, the current owner.
Sorry, the seller, you mean? You're the owner?
The owner right now that's selling to me, he did sign the acceptance of the zone change also.
Right. Okay.
But I won't be the owner until February 5th.
And can I ask you on the record, so is this sale contingent upon the zone change being approved?
No.
Okay.
So procedure-wise, this happens frequently. And as long as we have that form from the owner saying they're good with this moving through, then we proceed.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I think that addresses their concern.
I would like to make a motion with the mayor and the council's consideration. I would like to make a motion that we deny this zone change proposal, and I'll tell you why. For me, there's 2 or 3 things, and I'm going to try and distinguish those. And again, I want you to know this is not personal. I've had a conflict with the SHD ever since it first came into being, and that hasn't wavered. So this isn't just because it's in my neighborhood. There seems to be some question about how the posting was done for the zone change for notification to the neighbors. And so that alone leads me to believe that perhaps we, and I say the city, we're not following our own ordinance guidelines. Number two, and I addressed this last week, but I have to bring it up again, that I'm deeply concerned about the fact that where it's located right in the middle of the block, if this were to go through and be built, it will forever change the aesthetic and livability of that neighborhood. And I'm saying the apartments wouldn't be attractive, but it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. And then thirdly, there's been an outpouring of concern from the neighbors that live in that area. So for those reasons, I would like to make a motion that we deny this proposal to change from R3M to SHD.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? All right. The motion dies for lack of a second. Are there any other motions?
Motion to approve the zone change from R31 to SHD.
I'll second it.
All right. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That passes 4-1 to. Okay. Item number 9, consider an ordinance amending the short-term rental ordinance.
I would like to speak first to this if I can, just only because my involvement in this was called into question last week. And I think that as a citizen and as a neighbor in that neighborhood, I have every right to participate in the discussion and the votes related to that. The fact that I believe in the sharing economy that is, we're beginning to enjoy, things like Uber and DoorDash and short-term rentals. I can have that. I have a right to that opinion. I'm very happy to disclose that I do have a short-term rental in the county, but not in the city. And I use these kinds of facilities when I travel. So I have a belief in them, but I don't believe that that disqualifies me from the discussion. Having said that, I want to acknowledge the bravery of Kathy Hunsaker for bringing this up and bringing to our attention what has happened in that neighborhood, including invasions of privacy with photographs and video of activities at the property. What she said in the meeting last week is absolutely correct. There has never been a nuisance caused by that property or any short-term rental property in the city. We've checked with the chief of police, and I think there's one instance in the last 5 years. I just think that we are creating much ado about nothing. Now, having said that, we worked very hard to come up with the ordinance that was passed. And I'll speak for myself, but I don't think there's any of us that believe that has run its course and that we've seen it in place long enough to back away from what we voted on back when. So my disposition would be to leave things as they are for now and move forward on that basis. Those are my thoughts.
That thoughts or is that a motion?
That's his
I
thoughts.
think.
Okay.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
I also have a few thoughts on that I'd like to share too. And also to go back to when we finished this item, I had some comments on the student housing district too that I would like to share if I could. But on the short-term rental, most of you know, basically a personal property rights. I'm in support of that people can and be allowed to do what they want with their property as long as it's not infringing on someone else. This one, we took a lot of time and went through it, and I think we made a worthy compromise at that point. I am concerned that we erode the heart of our residential neighborhoods, and I'm not sure that we're finished with maybe what we might do in the future with a short-term rental. Maybe we'll tweak it. Maybe we have some other ideas that we've kicked around, but I'm also in favor of leaving it where it is. I feel at some point, for safety reasons and just the sheer number of people, that it becomes more of a commercial operation than a rental. And so I would also be in favor of leaving that alone. Another comment, there was a lot of discussion both on the student housing district and the short-term rental of our police department and lack of enforcement. And we have a remarkable police department, and our chief sits on the back row listening to everyone complain that what a bad job they've done. And so I had went to him and said, have there been complaints registered on this property? Will you go back and look? He reported back to me that there's been one report on that property in June of 2018 that he could come. He did admit, he said sometimes if it's not a serious allegation or complaint, that it might not get recorded. But I feel bad for all the disparaging remarks that's been made about our police department, because they do a good job in keeping our city safe. And thank you very much, Chief Adams, for you and what your officers do. But what I would ask in the future, if there are incidents that you report and you feel that it doesn't get the attention, that nothing happens on it, that it doesn't get enforced, will you please bring those specific incidents to us so we can follow up on it, so we can get an answer for you and whatnot, because it makes it very difficult when it's just, many things have happened and nothing gets enforced. So if you could please bring us specifics to us so we can follow up and make sure that that is not happening in our city, because we have no way of verifying that. So we would like some help there. And with that, that's probably all I have to say on this issue. I don't know if the others have.
Yes, I and I apologize. I did put some written remarks together. They're going to take 6 minutes. I apologize for the length. I know, I'm sorry.
Do you have
And
a
I will
copy of them?
send them to Renan.
Okay.
So that she doesn't have to type that up. First, and before I start, I just do want to state that I understand the need to and the importance of neighborhoods in our community. That's why I'm starting these neighborhood walks, starting with this SHD area, the 2 blocks immediately south, specifically of the university. I'm going to start that. I put the event on Facebook. Any other council members are welcome to come. If we have more than 2 show up, we'll split up to make sure that we don't violate any open meetings laws. But next Friday morning at 9 a.m., I intend to start walking those neighborhoods between 200 South and 300 West and hear your concerns, because I do think our neighborhoods are important. That being said, I'll start with my statement. I greatly appreciate the community input from different sides of the short-term rental debate, as well as the references to articles about the issue containing input from other communities and policy professionals. I feel strongly the need to provide a transparent view to the public regarding how I understand this issue and what I'm inclined to decide in the future based on the information that I have available to me. Please keep in mind that my mind is never entirely made up, and I am always open to new information, data, and viewpoints to help shape my views. The issue before us today is whether to approve an increase on the current occupancy limits set in place by this council about 1 year ago. Tonight, I am inclined to vote nay. This is not because I support the occupancy limits as an effective or appropriate limit on short-term rentals, but rather because I believe that a vote to raise the limit, number one, further ratifies a flawed standard, and number 2, will not remedy the Hunsakers' problems as detailed in their letter to this council. I understand this council came to a decision regarding occupancy limits after much careful thought and deliberation as a compromise between different parties. However, in my research, I was unable to find any policy experts advocating for such a limit, likely due to the concerns mentioned last week. To the prior council's credit, many of the policy papers I have read were not yet published and weren't until last year, as this is an emerging area in policy. That being said, the last thing we want as a city is a regulation on the books that leads to neighbors becoming self-appointed regulators who tattle on the rule breakers. Instead, if we're going to limit short-term rentals or otherwise amend our current ordinance in the future, I would be more open to exploring limitations based on other metrics, such as owner occupancy requirements and annual rental limits, which can be verified through records kept and submitted with tax paperwork. Anyone already operating in violation could be grandfathered in. We could have a sunset period at a later date, and any records kept by the rental service are likely to be accurate, as rental operators not using the rental services will lose their advertising and significant liability protections that are associated with their use. Other concerns were mentioned in letters to the council and/or myself, and I would like to address some of these. Regarding operation of a so-called hotel in a residential area, I do have a hard time differentiating a bed and breakfast from other businesses. For example, if I wanted to operate my law firm in my own home and have a few clients per day to visit my home, I'd probably be fine under the current law. However, if I wanted to buy a house one street over and use that as my law firm, the law would not fall in my favor. I do not believe a B&B should receive special treatment just because their business is that people sleep there a few nights at a time. Our laws should be consistent and either allow both or prohibit both. In response to many of last week's comments regarding single-family zoning, 2 residents sent me an article about other communities and states abolishing single-family zoning altogether, citing political and practical inflexibility of single-family zoning in a changing world. While I do not endorse that position, I'm acutely aware of many of the unintended individual and societal impacts we see in our country with such zoning, such as limited access to amenities, decreased walkability, and the death of hometown retail. One letter stated that they purchased their home in an R1 zone because of the restriction to single-family homes. I ask everyone to keep in mind that the zoning restriction in and of itself does not guarantee that a neighborhood will not change. Home-based businesses, group homes, and other uses that may not immediately come to mind are permitted in R1 zones, some of which are federally mandated, and the city cannot bar them from operating. Further, as the world and community change, we see an increasing number of older R1 neighborhoods in this country needing to rezone to allow the highest use of the property and prevent blight. R1 neighborhoods that do not use an HOA to enforce building and land maintenance enforce building and land maintenance, use, and aesthetics will likely all reach higher density or become mixed-use areas with time, or become historical districts. On a related note, another letter stated that the resident who does not live near Ridge Road would have purchased in another city if they knew that there was a chance a huge short-term rental could live next door to them. I'm not sure this resident is aware, but that was a possibility just up the street from them a few years ago with 2 of the largest homes in their neighborhood. However, the Homeowners Association blocked those operations. Those who view their home as an investment and want to better ensure their neighborhood remains inflexible to market changes have for decades used an HOA as a tool to that end and may continue to do so. I personally find it surprising that Ridge Road residents have not formed an HOA with the fervor I have seen on this issue, with many of them coming to council meetings, sending emails and letters of concern, and paying hundreds of dollars out of their own pockets to support a city council candidate who they felt would support their position in last year's race. Granted, an HOA could not be used to bind the Hunsakers or anyone else not willing to opt in, but this group would be able to bind future unknown owners of those lots that do opt in, protecting the neighborhood from more of this perceived threat of change in the future. As time passes, it will become harder to sympathize with a neighborhood that lobbies the city to protect it from harms, real or imagined, while failing to take advantage of the legal tools available to it privately. To close, I intend to vote nay on the change because I do not believe it will help the Hunsakers with their problem with their neighbors, and I do not want to ratify a policy that leads to this kind of neighborhood enforcement. Voluntary cooperative associations are a great avenue for that. Cities are not. If we revisit this code in the future as a municipal entity, I would love to see something that is easily enforceable, consistent with other law, and leads to better neighborhood relationships.
Thank you. And you will send that to Renan?
Yes, right now.
Okay. Are there other comments from the council?
I'll just make a quick comment. I appreciate the input, and I've responded to every single citizen that has sent me something. And I've helped to clarify a few issues with some of those individuals, which I think has been good. I like the work that has been done, the input and everything that we came to get to this ordinance originally. And we do have areas in our community that restrict a lot of these uses. And I'm not going to go down that road because I gave a big dissertation on HOAs back when we were discussing it. And as I mentioned to this group, you do have CCNRs filed with the county, which took me forever to find, many hours of time searching 1,800 county records to find your CCNRs. But there was a key paragraph left out, and that was paragraph 4. Most CCNRs are boilerplate. I've worked with them for 30 years. And paragraph 4 was left out of yours, which concerned me at the time, and I brought that up. Because most of them will leave that in there, which protects operating businesses of this type in a neighborhood. And then if you have an active HOA, as Tyler was leading to, you can keep those out, which there is areas of Cedar City that we do that in, that we have kept short-term rentals out of neighborhoods. I'll just say that for now. And so I'm not opposed to doing anything to the current ordinance in place. It was I thought, a good solution after all the discussion and everything that was put into it. So I would be in favor of voting no as well. But you gotta have a motion first.
I was going to say, then.
I'll make a motion that we deny the request to amend the short-term rental ordinance and leave it as is on the books.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Item number 10.
Hey,
Yes.
can I just say a couple of things? Because we kind of went to emotion really quick on the student housing thing, and I had a couple of comments to make. I know that's a little bit out of ordinary, but I know some of these people are going to be leaving, and I wanted to address
Go for it.
where I came to my decision. Back when we created the student housing district, this was another one that we spent countless hours in community input, negotiating, trying to come up with the right fit to provide a need and identify where our student housing should be. We had a safety issue in the old homes around the university that we're still trying to address. That was our primary concern in doing these student housing district and being able to use those tools. That being said, I met with David Minier today, or Minier, I'm not sure quite how you pronounce it, but I expressed this to him also, that I'm not super in favor of this project that he's doing where it landed in the middle of a block. And our attorney has advised us that that is our ordinance that's on the book, and if we have some legal valid reasons that we want to deny him to be able to use that tool, then we're welcome to do that. We don't want to open the city to unnecessary litigation or problems by denying him that. That being said, I would hope that we can work. All of the people that I've met with on this neighborhood issue have said that Mr. Minier has been very amenable, trying to work with them, trying to be a good neighbor. And I would just plead, that we did approve this to go through. Will you please be conscious of that and work with them on the aesthetics and whatnot to make this less intrusive into their neighborhood as it can be. And I think he's very willing to do that, and we appreciate that. He cares about our community and cares about that neighborhood, and the relationships that he has there. But I would also maybe like to start the discussion of revisiting some of the terms in the student housing district, as much as I don't want to open that can of worms. Maybe putting some minimum standards or some requirements in the neighborhoods with, some of those things. So if we can maybe start those discussions and maybe have some ideas, maybe input from those who live in the neighborhoods as to what would work for you when these projects come up in the R3 neighborhoods, I'd appreciate it. I don't know how my cohorts over here feel about that, but that's what I would like to do is maybe have some discussion on how we could make this fit in our neighborhoods better.
I would agree with that. I'm being new to this council. I don't have, I haven't experienced enough bags of worms to be averse to reopening that.
That's because you're the junior councilman.
Right. So I would.
You're just excited that you are not.
So I'm more than happy to have those discussions as well.
If the council has some starting points of where they would like to go, we can work with staff and get those conversations and this kind of rolling again.
I think it's a good idea, and I think
we
there's
need a few
points.
starting points.
Yeah, and I think we've got some good ideas. We've had some good comments from some of the neighbors, and I think there's 2 or 3 points that we can at least start on and then go from there.
Okay, great. If you'll kind of get those, start emailing those, and we can work on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
All right. Item number 10. Consider leasing property on Highway 14 west of Right Hand Canyon Road for advertising.
So I'm going to recommend that this matter be tabled till the next action meeting.
Good.
And from last work meeting, I've been given some additional documentation from Mr. Roberts, and we got some additional documentation from the county. There's just a few other legal issues that we want to work through, so we advise the council as best we can.
Move to table this item.
Can I make a comment though? Because I sent an email back to Paul and was looking, for some response on this, and I wasn't offered any. So I did some research on my own to come up with some information that I'd like to, unless you want me to leave it till we discuss it again. Just because I wasn't getting any information on the subject back. So I went digging myself.
I would have loved to have given you some. I didn't have anything.
Well, and I can relate that. That may not be your expertise of legal work, but I'm an expert on the state's Outdoor Advertising Act now, if you need some help.
Now.
Yeah, now. But I don't know. Do you want me to wait?
Go ahead.
It's up to you
guys.
if you'd rather
It's just a little bit of history, I think, that would help, for where this came from. I found out that as to why Dan, my biggest question was why Dan Roberts has been paying the state of Utah lease money on this sign. I mean, the sign has been there for, as long as I can remember. And that's a lot of years. Because I've been here 62 years in Cedar City. I don't remember when it wasn't there, but I'm not sure it's been there quite that long. But anyway, I found out that the state looks at it, and they've got a map. You can pull it up, and you can shows where the sign location is, and gives you the permit number and everything on it. And that information, it's listed as a non-conforming sign on a scenic byway. Now that's the key words there. It is listed on a scenic byway, which State Route 14 is. So that's how the state addresses it. So in conversation with Terry today on some other things, she triggered me. She asked me if I'd check the county. Well, I have now. The county has in their ordinance, it just says that they give attention to this Outdoor Advertising Act, and they comply with everything that's listed in it. Okay, so that being said, as that's kind of why the sign's there and why Dan's been paying on it. Now, as I mentioned, I think before that these kinds of things, I sometimes wish they weren't brought up, but I mean, it's been there forever. And now that somebody's brought it up, we've got to address it because it's our property. It's city-owned property that this sign sets on. So my feelings at the time after reading all of this is the fact that we as a city, and it's not in the city limits. Well, we all agree with that. It's not in the city limits, so it doesn't fall under our ordinances at all, because we have an ordinance that would make it an off-premise advertising. But that doesn't apply here because it's not in the city limits. But it is on our property. But my idea is if we get into this leasing of signs, we're opening a huge can of worms to people. I just don't see us having anybody walk in and say, hey, I want to put a sign up on I'll say the corner of the field at the hills and advertise my legal business up there and this type of thing. And then saying, all right, are we going to lease that space to them? I mean, it could be any city property. That would be different. That's in the city. But so my point is, I don't really want to even get into leasing, a sign period. Dan can, I guess, continue to pay if it decides to be stayed. But I think maybe based on the information I've dug up, it needs to go. I mean, either because I don't think we want to get in the business to leasing it. And, it's not an amount. We wouldn't do it for the revenue anyway. The permit costs $90 a year.
Not for $90 a year.
$90 a year.
That's the
So-
UDOT permit rate. That wouldn't be our lease rate.
No. I'm just saying that's the permit rate that's out there right now. So that's all I wanted to say. I was just ready to do it and I just leave.
Well, we've had a motion to table. Is there
I will second that motion.
And that was only because I'm looking for more from,
yeah, so we can
Staff.
get
And
more
that's fine.
information from them.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
hi.
All right, wonderful. We'll bring that up next.
Let's do it in the work meeting if that's okay, and then we can really discuss it.
Oh, okay.
As long as we have enough material information to discuss.
Okay. Item number 11, consider resolution to begin the process of terminating ownership rights on abandoned cemetery lots. This has been a busy meeting for you, Wade.
Yes, apparently I should have dressed better for it. So
Should have worn your leisure wear.
Wade Orem, Parks Division Head, Councilman Phillips, your question last week was how many plots? There is 275 foreshore that we do not have any questions or concerns with about unknown graves, being that from early century burials that we don't know exactly where they're at. But there is 275 foreshore that there's no issues with reselling.
I think this is an appropriate thing for us to do. I'm glad that we're able to finally be in a position and treat these with respect and then try and do our very best to get a hold of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I like your idea of planting trees on those places that we're not aware of, that we're unclear on. So I would make a motion to approve it.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Can I make a quick note? Can those trees just not be silver maples? They never do well.
Oh, now you open the
Uh-oh, now you-
floodgate of
Here's the
Something
arborist.
pretty.
As a certified arborist in Cedar City, I will never advocate planting a silverleaf maple without a large maintenance budget.
Thank you.
So no, you will not get
Don't
those.
have one of those.
Yep, that was
That
quick.
ain't happening.
All right, item number 12, consider an ordinance adopting Utah's Wildland Urban Interface Code.
Mike?
Mike Phillips with the fire department. Chief Church is still in Salt Lake, so I get to stand before you. Have any questions?
No, we appreciate all the work
Yeah.
that's been done on this.
Thank you.
It was
Motion.
a very exciting book to read through.
Yeah.
I heard Terry was
Move
reading
to approve the
sprinkler
ordinance.
code.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 Congratulations.
All right, item number 13, consider approving an RFP to update the city's general plan.
So we do have the RFP drafted. We sent it out to everybody. The one comment I got back from Mr. Phillips was to include something in there about tourism. We can include that kind of in the economic development section. I don't know if it would be a full-blown tourism analysis, but we can
No,
include
no,
it.
but I think it should be considered because it is part of the general plan of the city and it's an important part of it. That's all.
So yeah, with that, we can publish it as early as tomorrow morning. It would have a short turnaround time and be right back before you soon.
I would just say for my fellow members of the Historic Preservation Commission, historic preservation is also included in that document, RFP, FYI.
So I move to approve the RFP and get it out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that,
Move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I don't know.